welcome to everyone. I got Jacie, who goes by AKA Lady Carnivory. Is that pronounced correctly?
Yes, it is.
It is. It is. It is. And the beauty is that Lady Carnivory, Jacie, has been helping create a cookbook for my team, and I'm hoping it'll come out sometime in the next few months, but it may be probably closer to summertime or something. But welcome to the conversation, Jacie. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm well. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. Very good. I just came back from a week in a vacation. I was in Florida for about 3 days and Costa Rica for about 5 days doing the Verse TV series on Carnivore. So I was just really honored to be invited to go down and do that. It's
Yeah,
cool.
I was following that on Instagram, watching all of you guys kind of go down there and be able to help those people. It seemed pretty quick. I didn't realize it was only a few days that you were down there.
It was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Arrived on Wednesday, left on Sunday. There were some shootings on all days, and really amazing, great group of people. The one thing about Carnivore, I've been so excited because there's so many great people, and it's a great community. Tell
Yeah.
us about yourself and how you got into this crazy carnivore world or your nutritional world that you're in.
So I have a very similar story to a lot of people where I grew up eating normal standard American diet. As I got into my teenager years, I started developing eating disorders. And that was around about the time that I went vegetarian. And I think that that's pretty significant. I don't think that's a coincidence. As I got older, I overcame the eating disorders and I started eating more. I kind of tried everything, honestly. I tried paleo, if it fits your macros, low fat. I've done it all. Eventually, I had a coworker who said she was going to try this crazy thing called keto. And I was like, you were going to kill yourself? So I immediately went on PubMed and I was like looking up articles about keto and how trying to convince her that it was going to be terrible for her. And lo and behold, I found it's actually really great for inflammation. And at that point, I had been dealing with knee inflammation, just knee pain, general knee pain, nothing really wrong with it, just hurt all the time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy weightlifting. And the knee pain was preventing me from doing that. So I saw how much keto could reduce inflammation. I was like, well, maybe I'll try it. So I tried keto in 2017. I did relatively well on that. It resolved a lot of issues for me. My joint pain was not eliminated, but a lot of it went away. I lost a lot of the brain fog I had experienced just eating normally. But it was really hard for me to adhere to. I'm a very black and white person. So if I was like 1 gram over my carb limit for the day, I was going to be all of the grams over my carb limit for the day. I was like, well, might as well just eat it all. So eventually I heard the Joe Rogan podcast with Dr. Sean Baker, and he was talking about the carnivore diet. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like easy keto because you don't have to worry about the carbs. And I tried it, and carnivore was a night and day difference for me personally than keto. I had a totally different experience. It actually helped me resolve some mental health issues I had been experiencing for a long time. I had suffered with OCD since my teenage years and at various times was medicated or did therapy for it. Nothing really ever helped. But carnivore, it wasn't my most immediate benefit, but it was my most significant benefit over time.
What do you think is the biggest reason for the significant benefit in carnivore for yourself and so many other people?
Yeah, I think it's a multi-factor thing, as everything is. I think that carnivore is a very low inflammatory diet, and especially when you're looking at the vegetables that are kind of more promoted in the keto community, a lot of them have things that are not super great for our brains. One really good book I always like to recommend to people is The Dietitian's Dilemma by Michelle Hearn. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she has really great chapters in there about plant toxins and mental health. And I think removing the plant toxins ultimately for me was what made all the difference.
What do you think is the reason why we're all sort of driven to this plant-based approach, and we in medicine and science and nutrition just can't see it?
That's really interesting. I think that people want to think that plants are cleaner in some ways. I mean, when you look at what it takes to slaughter an animal, it is not an easy thing. And I don't take that lightly. I think that the animals that we eat, they are sacrificing their lives for our nutrition. And that is not an insignificant thing. With plants, you don't have to harm anything, right? Or you think you don't have to harm anything. You probably harm lots of things in the harvesting process. But I think there's this natural inclination to not want to harm another living creature that I totally understand. However, I think when we look at our roles as humans and how we have evolved over time, it really seems significant that we've had these leaps and bounds whenever meat has been involved.
And obviously the killing of any sentient being has been so sort of ingrained in us for so long, and yet no one really thinks about the fact that plants are actually live organisms, and they've developed defense systems for millions of years and offensive systems also to sort of direct and control the environment, and likely to control and kill other micro and macroorganisms. And maybe we've just been duped to believe that we're more superior, and a plant just doesn't know what the heck it's talking about, because it doesn't have a real mission in life. But ultimately, it is a nucleated cellular organism, multicellular, that has an immense evolutionary path that maybe when all of the earth is put to fire or a meteor or something, what comes back probably faster than anything? The plants.
Yeah. Plants are scary. Have you seen Little Shop of Horrors?
Oh, yeah. My daughter was actually in the play 25 something years ago. And, but ultimately, it's interesting. I was in the operating room today, and I was talking to a medical student, and I always like to talk to the medical students, and I start talking about all of this stuff, but it's interesting how quite often, most of the time, this thing just tosses their whole brain works out the door, and they just can't comprehend the possibility that plants are bad and meat is good, even though when you work to describe the science, it's completely out of the expectations. They can't even comprehend it, even though it's science.
It's just we've been ingrained with it for so long, and we have these huge companies that are funding studies saying plants are good and meat is bad. It's a really hard thing to change someone's entire world perspective, for sure.
Well, just like politics, religion, culture, and all sorts of belief systems, we are ingrained to believe what we've been taught, and changing our minds is really hard. And I know as a physician, I wasn't trained in this nutrition. I learned this from people like yourself online, or those that have written books about paleo, keto, and carnivore, for me to learn anything about it. And then I went on a journey to realize that maybe much of what we even think in the keto carnivore world is wrong. And so tell us a little bit about your cooking endeavors and what got you into the I'm going to say keto carnivore cooking space, because maybe they overlap a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I have always loved Food Network. Like ever since I was a little kid, I was like 5 years old, and I just wanted to watch people cook. I always say that I have a PhD in Food Network because I've watched so many hours of it. Like I've put in my time. And before I went keto or carnivore, I was really into baking. I just loved it so much. And so cooking has always been this amazing creative outlet for me. But with carnivore, the food is so easy to cook, which is such a huge benefit for myself and for so many other people. It's so easy to prepare your meals. But I missed that creative outlet. And I know that there are especially moms that reach out to me and they say, I want to feed my kids more healthily, but it's really hard to just feed a kid like a burger patty. That's not exciting to them. And so I started kind of stretching this creative muscle in the carnivore space to come up with different formats for things like chicken. I made a gnocchi recipe so moms can feed their kids mac and cheese, and I made a chicken tortilla recipe so you can make enchiladas or tacos. And it's just been very fulfilling for me personally as a creative outlet, but then also seeing the benefits in the community has been amazing.
And you've been working on a book with us. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Oh, it's been amazing. So I've been working with Austin Cavelli, also known as, oh my gosh, why is her name blanking?
Carnivore Cavelli.
Yes, thank you. And then also your son, he's been really great in supporting us and bringing this book together. It's been really amazing working with Austin, especially because she's so knowledgeable about organ meats, and that's something that I've kind of dabbled in, but I don't have a ton of experience. And so for people who are looking to get more organ meats into their diet for whatever reason, she really brought that ability to our table. Otherwise, I would have been a little too, I think intimidated is the right word. Organs aren't hard once you get your hands in them. It's just like the thought of having to process organ meats is kind of intimidating. But Austin is such a professional about it, and she really walks you through step by step in the book. And then you can incorporate those organ meats into the friendlier formats that I've created, like the gnocchi for the mac and cheese or the tacos, etc.
So I want to make sure everyone knows this, but both you and Austin Cavelli have been working with our team, Will Kiltz, who's actually my nephew, my brother's son.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no. I have one daughter, but Will's close as can be. But you guys have been doing an amazing job. We're excited to bring this out there. We just are putting out our Kiltz's Keto is Carnivore, similar to our Kiltz's Keto book in the past, but it's really fun and exciting to put these things out there because it's a lot of creativity and cooking. As you said, I grew up with Julia Child, Jacques Pepin,
yes,
so many online television, I shouldn't say online. I didn't grow up online. Television chefs, and I grew up in the kitchen cooking. My mom and dad taught us cooking. We've been cooking forever, and I was like always loved. I was a main cooker in the house, and it is part of our creative nature, but it's become much of an amusement, entertainment, rather than nutritional temple work. What are your thoughts and kind of the differences between sort of the standard fare, getting to the paleo keto fare, and now into the carnivore fare?
Yeah, it's just like you said. I like when you look at traditional or foods in the grocery store, they are colorful. They are loaded with dyes. The packaging is exciting. They're really trying to entice you and draw you in. It's like seeing a circus from afar. And you're going to spend all your money at the circus and you're not going to get any health benefits from it. But definitely my approach to keto was always very clean. I wasn't very much into all of those packaged keto treats. And so I think that was what made me more successful in my own keto diet. And then with carnivore, like the ease of cooking is just amazing. I know I have these recipes where it seems more complex, but day to day, I am eating things like bacon and eggs and salmon and just single source foods that I cook on both sides and then eat.
And what's your thoughts on fat to protein ratios or amino acid ratios?
Oh, I think that's so bio-individual. We all have different health histories, different lifestyles, and different goals, right? So what works for one person at one point in their life might not work for you at your point in your life. But I do think it's a good lever to play with in terms of the carnivore toolkit of, trying out different types of meat or trying out organ or doing different fat to protein ratios. Typically, I naturally fall at about 70-30. So that would be 70% fat, 30% protein. But at various times, I've kind of leaned either way. I think that, again, it's just a really cool lever to play with.
What's the reason you've gone more protein over fat?
That's just where I naturally fall. So I don't track typically. If I do track, it's because people are curious about what I've been eating. And when I track, it just turns out that's what my body was craving for the day. And it comes out pretty consistently that way for me.
What's your usual purchase of food? What's your common habit of your meals?
So typically for breakfast, I'll have bacon and eggs. And then I am very big about eating the carnivore rainbow, right? So making sure that I get all the nutrition I can by eating a variety of meats. I've really been enjoying chicken thighs lately. Oh my gosh, they're so good. I typically will eat butter with something like that. And then for dinner, I might have a nice big piece of salmon or some ground beef.
And how do you cook in your chicken thighs?
Ooh, I have a recipe at ladycarnivory.com, but typically I do them in the oven in a pan because it's super easy. And what I'll do is I'll cook them for 30 to 40 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll put it under the broiler for 5 minutes to get the skin nice and crispy. And then the best part about chicken thighs is when you serve it up, if you pour the drippings from the pan back to the chicken, it's like, I call it chicken goo, which doesn't sound appetizing, but oh my goodness, it is the best part of the chicken thighs.
It's almost a little caramely.
Yes, it's so
I've
good.
always loved it. Loved it. Loved it. That's one of my favorites, and just a little bit of salt, and that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any sides?
Sides. No, I might have more meat, like if I have leftover meat from another meal, but carnivore really is that easy for me. It's just typically I pick a meat, cook it up, eat it.
I always tell people sides are deadly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because you can't have a boyfriend or girlfriend on the side of your partner, wife or husband or whatever it is.
Well, I hope that's
because,
not too deadly, but I guess in some cases it would be.
well, it may not be deadly, but it's very disruptive and usually not conducive to maintaining a relationship in most cases. And so I always say our best relationship is our primary center cut of the meat, and we should stay away from the sides, which typically have been a vegetable and a starch, which ultimately are both plants, which mean they're both carbohydrates, which mean they're both sugar. And so that's kind of the interesting part. What's been your biggest challenge in going from paleo, keto to carnivore for yourself?
I think it was getting buy-in from the people around me. I think to a certain extent, keto has been popularized, enough that people can kind of get on board with that. Oh, you're doing keto. I've heard of that. I understand it. But when you tell people you're only eating meat, it's really hard for them to overcome that in some ways. They're like, so you don't eat any plants? And you go, no. And they're like, what about broccoli? And it's like, no, especially not broccoli. Have you tasted broccoli? It tastes like farts. But that was the hardest part for me, was just getting the people around me on board. I'm very lucky. My mom's side of the family is very supportive of what I do. They know that I'm a pretty intelligent person, and I typically research the heck out of anything I'm about to embark upon. But my dad's side of the family is still very resistant to it. And it's incredible to me because they've seen all these health benefits happen for me, and they're still, suffering with back pain and IBS and all of this stuff that could really be helped by eating a meat-based carnivore diet.
Well, one of my friends, actually, a worker someone I work with, she tells me that she goes to a dermatologist, and her daughter goes there also. When her daughter has gone mostly carnivore, but a little bit of plants, limited. She has a bad issue with ulcerative colitis or IBS, but the doctor was pre-diabetic, and then hears about this nutrition, and she's like, "Oh, that's dangerous." The next time she goes, the doctor's now a diabetic. So, even our doctors are highly resistant to something so obvious to eliminate. I kind of say 100% of the diseases we suffer with, not just 99, 100% of the diseases are all plant-based and low animal fat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that really hasn't been my experience. So I have an autoimmune condition called ankylosing spondylitis, and it was actually triggered by CIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is an environmental disease. You get it from being really bad at eliminating biotoxins, and the biotoxin I experienced was mold. So I would say 99% of disease can probably be prevented by not eating plants, but some of us, we just can't handle environmental toxins that well.
Well, the plants, they feed the microbes in the gut. And the gut biome is deadly for us. And so when you eat plants, they come with mold. They come with bacteria and viruses. So they proliferate inside the gut. They go up the esophagus, they go down the rectum, but they also feed in through the lymphatics and other systems of our body. So it's really tough, but even a high protein diet is deadly for us because when you eat fat, it actually suppresses the microbes in the gut and it can significantly reduce it. The interesting part to mold is it's in bacteria, and it's highly difficult to eliminate from some of the bony areas of our body. And so we may get better and our body's typically able to control a lot of it, but there still may be small villages of those molds deep inside of us. So that's kind of an interesting concept because have you read James Henry Salisbury's work at all?
I have not.
So have you ever heard of Salisbury steak?
Yes.
Okay, so James Henry Salisbury was a physician from Albany Med in 1850. He graduated. He was actually a microscopist, so he loved to look under microscopes, and he was a chemist. He was in the Civil War on the Union side, and his men were dying of dysentery, and he found that the excessive overgrowth of bacteria and mold was the source. So he fed them, guess what?
Meat, I hope.
Steak, Salisbury steak. That's how we got Salisbury steak. So, a lot of this is very interesting. And as a physician, there are many cases where people are healthy, but they still have problems. I'll put them on a 30-day course of antibiotics, antifungal and antiviral, because some of the bacteria and yeast and viruses are very entrenched in areas that aren't well treated with our natural immune system, and you may need those in some cases. So it's kind of
I think that's important too in the carnivore community. A lot of people will say like meat makes you feel like a unicorn, and there's some of us that just have these root healing underlying causes that we need to address, and maybe meat would have prevented it in the first place, but we're just too far gone and we need a little extra help. So I would like to just normalize, like, if carnivore alone doesn't help you, it's okay if you need a little extra help.
Well, modern medicine still has some values for all of us, but some people may choose to never use it. But ultimately, I think that it's magical. The one thing that I've always looked at is fat actually suppresses the microbes in the bowels. Protein stimulates the microbes in the bowels. And so many people don't know that plants, sugars, and amino acids ferment in the gut, and fermentation is at the hands of bacteria and yeast, essentially mold, which again, and many of the things that people suffer from, oxalate crystals and the oxalate problems and lectins and phytates, they take a long time to be released from the cells in our bodies. It may take years. I'm reading.
I really like. I don't know if you looked into chronic inflammatory response syndrome, but I think a lot of people, especially people in carnivore, might actually have it, because if you think about it, we're kind of biased to being sicker people because we're willing to do this like crazy extreme and diet, right? So there's that aspect, but then telling people that they're going to be dumping oxalates for years, it's like, are we sure about that? Are we sure there's not some like underlying problem?
Well, I have calcium deposits in my parotid gland and my shoulder, my muscles. So the kidney stones, just think of a kidney stone. It's a rock, and these rocks don't go away very quickly for a lot of people. And the interesting part of this story is that my sense is that it's the foreign particles. You mentioned environmental, right? the majority, 99.99% of the environmental factors that are harming us come from plants. And yes, there's glyphosates and there are other man-made chemicals, but interesting enough, for most of us, we're suffering from food-based disorders, which come with the microbes, the bacteria, yeast, and viruses, and other microbes that we may not even particularly know very well. But autoimmune disease, I've always said, is not autoimmune. Your body's not choosing to attack itself. It's attacking a foreign antigen that got into your body either when you were in utero or extra utero. And it was either from something you were breathing, drinking, eating, or it managed to get in your body in some other way, makeups or shampoos or other things. But it's kind of, again, it's a hard one. And I don't know if you have heard of the glycobiome.
No.
Which is, glyco is sugar.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sugar biome of our body, which ultimately lines every single cell of our body. And it's the barcode that actually says foe or friend, come on in or stay out. And there are sugars that bind to the proteins and the lipids of our cells that kind of identify our blood type or our DNA type, or even the COVID virus. The mutations are actually a sugar on the end of the protein spike. And most of us haven't even heard of it. I mean, I've really only known about it for about 5 years. And it's just one of those crazy ideas that I really just, you read a lot, don't you?
Yeah, it's amazing when you get into carnivore alternative nutrition, I'll call it. You just start going down all these rabbit holes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on supplements?
On supplements, I think they're meant for just that, supplementing. I don't think that we should strive for long-term use of supplements. I think that a lot of us come to carnivore with kind of this nutritional depletion that we may need to build up from. And I do think there's something to our body craving specific things.
Yeah.
So personally, like, I know that there's a lot of conversation about organ meats in the carnivore community and whether or not people should eat them. And my thought about that was, well, I'm going to try all the organ meats. And then if my body craves that flavor, I'll know that I should eat some of that organ. But I think that you lose out on that when you supplement it. You lose you lose that biofeedback to be able to say, I know what this tastes like. So when my body craves this taste, maybe I should have some. And then I think with maybe electrolytes, we need to supplement with long-term because our soil is so depleted, which means our meat is so depleted. So I think you can argue either way on that one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know that answer. I drink a mineral water mostly because I like it. I'm not convinced we need it. And I agree with you on the supplements and the organ meats, but I do believe that we probably ate the organ meats first, because those are relatively easy to get to. Breaking bones and eating meat wasn't so simple. But the lions, they go for the core. They go for the organ meats, the liver.
I mean, they go butt first. If you want to eat the lion diet, that's how you're going to be eating.
Well, you cut into the peritoneum. I mean, in anatomy classes, how did we get, you opened up from the rectum all the way up in order to get inside. And, but it is very interesting. What's been your clients? So you do coaching also?
I have in the past. I've done carnivore coaching. I actually have a nutritional coaching certification from NASM as well. So that's more of like behavior change. So more generalized health coaching, or people who are looking to make significant changes in their lifestyles.
And what's been the biggest a barrier, do you think, for so many of those people sort of being successful in this space?
I think it's trauma. I think that most people just don't want to resolve the trauma that gave them their food addiction or gave them their their food boundaries in the first place. I think a lot of us have a lot of unresolved trauma, and not only does it impact our behavior, but it can actually impact our physical health as well. I don't know if you've read The Body Keeps the Score, but it's a really great book about how trauma kind of gets trapped in our bodies and it manifests in these really weird ways. And by dealing with our trauma and actually growing from that experience, you can resolve a lot of underlying health issues as well.
Do you use any spiritual context in your practices?
Oh, no, not with. So personally, I think that
Not
limbic,
religious,
yeah,
spiritual, different. And so,
I think limbic retraining in general is really important. And I think that the limbic retraining that's best for you is the one that you can stick with. So whatever feels correct for the person I'm talking to or for myself, I think that's probably the best approach for you. Personally, I am a both spiritual and religious person. So I, I think if you vibe with that, you should go with that for sure.
well, I always say that faith in God is one of the most important things humanity has created. And if we realize that actual spirituality and faith in God is one of the most powerful drivers to dealing with trauma. And we've lost that in modern science. And I would say personally, as a physician who's dealt with all the different realms of the psyche, that ultimately our ancient religious and spiritual beliefs are the most powerful. And that's one thing that I think in modern medicine we've left out. And I always say faith is the first thing we should look at, and have faith in God. And faith in God is faith in ourselves. That means the power and strength to overcome anything. Because ultimately, 50,000 years ago, what'd you do with trauma?
Well,
I always wonder if in some way we carry our past in a negative way and don't see the positive value of all of it.
right. I think that, if you take a person who is unwell and they don't believe they can heal, they won't heal. Right? Our faith and our belief systems have that much power over our beings. Belief is incredibly important in the healing process.
Belief is all we have, because the story we're telling is just belief. I believe this, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this. So our beliefs are the thing that drives reality. And so I always say that, because even carnivore and keto and paleo and vegan, vegetarian, doesn't matter what you say, those are only belief systems. So we're sharing our belief system in what we believe to be the truth. Again, it's our belief system that we're deriving and running our lives with. But I once believed in keto, and I once believed in paleo and Atkins and Weight Watchers and Mediterranean. I'm a Mediterranean. So they're always changing, right? So we may talk in a year, 5 years, or 20 years, and it'll be like, let's see, I'll be almost 90, and I'll be like, whoa. And but we're always changing.
And that's the human experience, right? Evolution.
Yeah, that's why this is so much fun, because it's a lot of creativity. In my work with the great mentors at Reversed Carnivore meeting down in Costa Rica, everyone's got the similar belief system, but it's all different, and we're all coming from different places.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool thing about the carnivore community in general, is like we may have different approaches or different tools or different pieces of advice, but by sharing it with the larger community, what people can do is take the things that feel true for them and utilize them in their own experience, and they can leave behind what doesn't feel true for them.
What's your sort of biggest disagreement in the carnivore world?
My biggest disagreement?
Yeah.
I would say we don't have really a definition of carnivore. I mean, we have people who, like myself, would eat meat and dairy, but there are going to be people who argue that that's not what carnivore means. There are people who think carnivore means carnivore and fruits, and there are people who think that carnivore means one specific type of meat, and there are people who think that carnivore means raw fermented liver. Like, it's incredible the variety of quote unquote carnivores out there.
I guess, throw in keto, paleo, Mediterranean, and all those others, but there are only three diets. It's a herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore. So if you're eating anything but meat, if you're eating only plants, you're an herbivore. If you're eating only animals, you're a carnivore. And if you're eating both, you're an omnivore. So if you call yourself a carnivore, but you eat fruits and honey, you're an omnivore.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's how we define the animal kingdom, and we are animals.
That's correct. So that's the real true scientific. I'm mostly carnivore. Do I eat some milk and cream and a little bit of white sugar from time to time? Sure, I do. My French fries, rarely now. I'm off coffee, tea, and alcohol. But, I guess we're human beings, so we're just doing the best we can.
Yeah. And that's all you can do.
That's all we can do. What other things would you like to see change in this carnivore world?
I would really like to see the barriers for entry come down. I think when people hear they can only eat like grass-fed finished or pasture-raised eggs, or they have to eat certain meats and those meats only, it prevents them from entering the carnivore space. And I think a lot of those people specifically would benefit just from eating more meat, not necessarily eating the quote unquote perfect carnivore diet, which no one can define because we don't actually know what our ancestors ate. And we're still learning new scientific discoveries all the time. But if we could just lower the barrier for entry and just be like, you know what, carnivore is a welcoming space. Come here, eat meat with us. I would love to see that.
What would be your simple, perfect description
of carnivore? I would say it's a meat-based carnivore diet. So what you typically eat is meat. And then, like, personally, I don't care if people eat non-carnivore things occasionally and they still call themselves a carnivore. Just don't use hashtag carnivore on a meal with avocado on it, because you're going to get an angry message from me.
And my daughter would die to an avocado.
Yeah.
Because you see, the glycans that are on plants are antigenic. And that's why COVID kills.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was going to say, I don't handle avocados well, and it's because of the oxalates personally for me. And I know a lot of people have that same experience. But if someone handles avocado well, like more power to you. Those things are delicious.
Silently sick. So we aren't handling it because we don't know what it's doing to us. We've labeled things like oxalates and phytates and lectins, but those are only a small component of what is in the plant. And we label them as the cause of some disease, but we don't realize that the phytochemicals that are in plants are silently killing certain cells, damaging the mitochondria, which ultimately develops as a lymphoma, leukemia, a glioblastoma, or some other cancer or some other disease, or it causes a heart arrhythmia that drops you dead at 52. So that's the silently sick.
I think definitely like more meat is better, right? The more meat we eat, the better. And I think that you're always going to have these situations in life where it's like there might be a trade-off there. You might go to an event and all they have is like more keto-based stuff. And it's like, well, at that time, maybe it makes sense that you're fulfilling this social wellness meter and you're not 100% focused on your nutrition meter. Like, I think that there's a lot of balance there in life, and there's this perfect ideal situation that you can achieve all the time, but then there's good enough, right? It's like you said, we're all doing our best.
And we drive cars, fly in airplanes, we walk across the street, all these things. We have gas ranges in our houses and all sorts of things. I almost got killed by carbon monoxide a couple of weeks ago because power went out and it was freezing and something was up with the fireplace. But ultimately, there are many things that are going to kill us and are deadly and dangerous. And we're just working on, hey, let's do our very best to minimize, to maximize. And do you need to eliminate to live in the world where, is that, you go to a concert or a school these days, it's risky. And so ultimately we're all gonna make it to the grave. And why we're here, we want to learn some new things to help us live a better life, less disease, less need for modern medicine, modern drugs, right? And one of the things I focus on, fat suppresses inflammation in the bowels. Done. No one eats fat of any significance. The carnivore space, more people like Bella on Steak and Butter Gang. It's butter, 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 and other people do that. But we infuse fat, intravenous fat, in order to suppress systemic inflammation, in order to help someone get pregnant, which is a little kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think how for years and years we've been so scared of fat. And so now to hear people, and like I said, keto is becoming more mainstream. And I think that's a net positive because more people are eating more fat. And I think it's going to be really interesting, 20, 30 years from now to see what the Alzheimer's rates are, given that more people have been eating more fat.
But they're eating healthy fats, which are nuts, seeds, and avocados. Because every time someone tells me I'm eating healthy fats, they tell me avocados and walnuts. And so ultimately the avocado and the walnut not only contains a little oils, but it also contains phytochemicals and plant antigens. And ultimately they're sugar, because sugar is the real killer for all of us. You mentioned, and I agree with you, the grass grain doesn't matter, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, the absolute values just aren't there to convince me otherwise.
I mean, the omega-3 versus omega-6 ratios.
Well, when we're talking about absolutes, like the omega-3s in grain-fed versus grass-fed, like it's a neutral conversation because you should just eat salmon, right? Like the absolute amount of omega-3 in a piece of steak is not going to be as comparable to something like a piece of salmon. So that's where I come in with my, like, let's eat the carnivore rainbow, because then you get more nutrients.
Yet the omega-3 versus omega-6s, there never been any randomized prospective studies to prove that.
Yeah, and then when people are like, oh, but our ancestors, it's like, you don't know what our ancestors did. No one had an iPhone. No one was recording that on TikTok.
Damn. But there's got to be something out there. We're going to figure it out. But yeah, it's a story. We have no idea. And the way we're going here, I think, is good. You're right about keto, but the voices of the masters are strong. They've got people buying FTX and Bitcoin cryptocurrency, and the marketers are powerful. What do you think is the best way to sort of approach helping people know better to heal the diseases and things that you experienced and everyone's experiencing one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, to sum it up, eat the meat you like, can afford, and makes you feel your best. But ultimately, I think that, to get buy-in for carnivore, I think we just need more normal carnivores. I think that we haven't had the best representation in the media of carnivorism. So I think it would be really great if we could have more just normal people living normal lives, eating a carnivore diet and just thriving, because that's what happens when you eat carnivores, is you are living such a high quality of life. And I think that's what we should crave. We're in this consumerist society of more and more and more. People want more. But it's like, what if we just really slowed down, simplified, ate meat, and just lived these incredibly high quality lives?
Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on fasting.
Fasting. I think that's another really great carnivore lever. I've experimented with both intermittent and extended fasting. I think it's, again, very bio-individual whether or not it's going to work for you. But like all of the different carnivore tool sets, I think it's a fun thing to experiment with and see if it does serve you well.
You say bio-individual. What do you mean by that?
I mean, we all have different health histories, different lifestyles, and different goals. So it's going to change our approach to how we do anything, not just nutrition.
But ultimately, a human cell is a human cell, and our requirements are nearly identical to function in that human cell. But I think I like the way you use that term because but it's individually defined by each of us because ultimately addictions are powerful and it's hard to overcome addictions.
Mm.
And so finding methods like carnivore and coaching and support or examples like yourself can really help someone who's suffering with whatever addictions. And carnivore seems to be a way to really eliminate it. And as a carnivore, I've eliminated alcohol, I've eliminated coffee, tea, and I pretty much eliminated my French fries, which are like, whoa.
I still like to smell them though. Like if I'm driving by a fast food place, I'll be like, French fries.
We don't have like although I guess in some way, the barbecuing of meat is just like such a draw.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I'm salivating. Yeah,
All right.
it's way better than French fries. And like I would eat a French fry and just feel sad, right? Because it doesn't taste good. It's just like the carb addiction kicking in. But like a steak, not only does it smell good, it tastes good, it feels good. When you eat a fatty piece of meat and it feels like the heavens have opened up and like angels are singing upon you, like that is just an ethereal experience that no other food compares to. And it's like that's how you know carnivore is a real legit diet is because it feels good.
Yeah. So what's your educational background?
I have a degree in business management, but like I said, I did do the nutritional certification through NASM. I did the Rivero coaching for carnivores, and I am just a lifelong learner. So I will always go down those rabbit holes and nerd out.
What got you into the business side?
I was working for an audiology practice at the time and kind of Jill of all trades. I worked in their front office, so interacting with patients. I did operations, accounting, etc. And so it just seemed like a good thing for me to do at the time to kind of bolster my skill sets.
And tell us a little bit about your physical exercise and what type of things do you recommend and what type of things do you do?
Oh, I think everyone should do resistance exercise. I think it's so important, especially as you get older, to build up muscle mass. And I also think low intensity, steady state cardio is really good. So, walking. Personally, I don't enjoy running, but it's kind of like anything. The exercise you enjoy is the exercise you will do. So, whatever helps you adhere to an exercise program, that's the activity you should do.
Is there anything like excessive exercise that may be harmful?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, the dose makes the poison, right? And that's true for anything.
Yeah. What's your favorite book in life? Not
In
just
life,
carnivore.
okay, it's Sherlock Holmes. I can read that
Ooh.
book on repeat. I just read it over and over. And it's like, I have the whole anthology. So it's like the adventures of Sherlock Holmes and then the individual stories too. But it's my go to fiction book. It's the one I read before bed every night.
Sherlock Holmes. And how about your favorite spiritual book?
Oh, the Bible.
Bible. Um, more people need to read the Bible every day.
I have this really great app. It's called Read Scripture and it takes you through the Bible in a year. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
And there's
Yes,
really
I
great.
have. I haven't that I've got my Bible scripture here. I got my 360 day Bible read that I listen to or read every single day. And it is something powerful. Many people are falling away from going to church, but and maybe don't connect with a particular religion, but spirituality and belief in a higher power, I think, is one of the most powerful and most important things for any of us.
Yeah, I'm not a big churchgoer either. I love worship music. That's always my favorite part. But Bible studies have always been really life-giving to me, just having that community and that connection of other people who are reading and experiencing the Bible or the Word of God. And I think that that has been really life-giving to me, as well as just having a community of really amazing people around me.
The Bible is really our story of humanity. And the religions are human stories, our culture. If you think about it, in every ancient civilization, religion was the most powerful thing. It still is around the world. But many of us from time to time, maybe venture away from it. And I personally, in my carnivore conversations, what do you put in your mind? What do you put in your mouth? And what do you marinate your physical body in? So what are you doing in your life to be creative and get out of the box of yesterday? The best way to get rid of worry is go to work.
It's interesting you say that, because
Go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I always, whenever I start feeling not like myself, I realize that I'm in a mode of consumption rather than creation. And the best way to get out of that for me is to give to others. So if I am feeling low in a very selfish way, by giving to others and by helping another human, it feeds back to me. It's incredible.
Well, work ultimately is giving to others, because our work is either helping our family or our community or the world at large. And I think there's too much negativity in work. But ultimately, if you didn't go to work every day, you became the feed, because ultimately the foundation of life is finding food and shelter and protection. And so ultimately, most of us don't really have to do that anymore. But ultimately, it's still the most valuable thing. I always say the best way to make money is go to work. And ultimately, if you're focusing on work, and as a physician, my job is to help people. So I have, combine those things in some ways. But I think if you could, because most of our day's existence is at work, right? Or most of our waking hours is at work. And too many people dislike work. And I'm like, well, why are you doing that work? Because I have to. Well, no, you don't. But you also have the choice to love what you hate, which I think that's all the foundation of Jesus Christ, who's the master of love and forgiveness, which is kind of something that we don't talk about in the carnivore world or in medicine very much.
That's very true. I think at anything you're doing, you can ask, am I having fun? And if not, you either need to change what you're doing or change your mindset around it.
That is really it. That's it. That's such an important thing to practice every single day. So what's on your agenda for 23?
Ooh, 2023. My word of the year, as given to me by God, is abundance. And so I hope to have abundant health to give to others. But I don't know how that's going to manifest yet. I'm excited to see where it goes. I have a couple of conferences I want to attend in the health space, so that should be fun. And then just keep making crazy carnivore recipes.
At which conferences do you expect to be at this year?
Well, there's the low carb Denver. We kind of chatted about that one. And that's in late February, I believe. And then the other one I'm considering is it's called Sears X for the mold environmental toxin thing that I experienced. And that is in Boulder in July.
You didn't answer one question: is what is your exercise and your physical work?
Oh, what exercise do I like to do?
What do you do on a regular basis for resistance work or exercise or whatever you're doing?
Well, I've kind of been building up from ground zero again. So I started with resistance bands and I've been building up from there. So now I'm at the fitness center at my apartment complex and there's free weights and a cable machine. So I really like weightlifting. I think weightlifting is so important for women. Men are great. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't also weightlift, but like for women, it's just such an empowering experience because you get to feel so strong and so capable. I would just love if every woman could feel the way that I feel about weightlifting. And so it's definitely something I'm passionate about as well. And then the other thing I do is I walk my dogs.
Nice. And connection with others and animals is so important in life.
Oh yeah, they're my pack.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you go to work out, I always find that if you're in a community, it also helps inspire us to do a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime somebody's doing like a fitness challenge and you can like hop on board, I highly recommend it because even like tagging each other on Instagram, I think, especially with the pandemic, we became a lot more used to online communities, but having that support is definitely, or even like motivation or like being like, oh, tomorrow I get to work out and check in with my friend Alice because I did my workout and she's supposed to check in with me. It's so motivating.
So, is there anything that I may not have brought to the table and asked you this evening?
Oh, I don't think so. We covered all my favorite things. Meat. We talked about dogs and weightlifting. I'm covered,
And we covered a little spirituality too.
as you always should.
Always, I always say, start with that. So, but
That's
it's
how I
really been.
start my day.
I always start the day. I wake up at 3. I do my gratitude prayer. I get on my bike. I listen to a book. I may go through a few of my messages while I'm riding the bike and indoors. And then I do my weights and I do my cold shower and I'm off to work. And I'm usually there by 4 to 4:30 every day. And I'm live at 5. But I do my morning meditation or I'm reading. And I always love to read something new and different and experience so many amazing people like yourself in the carnivore space. But I've got my new snowboard, so I'm excited. When I come out to Denver, I'm going to go up. I was going to Vail in March. I turned 67. I'm going for my birthday, and I'm
Nice.
excited
That's
to
a
go
great
do
way to
that.
spend your birthday.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good. I went last year for my birthday up to Vail snowboarding, and I hadn't been snowboarding in about 8 years. Just I was doing other things, and somehow it's like, oh my God, has it really been 8 years?
It's
And
a trek. Like even living in Denver, it's like you have to get up early and like drive to the mountain and then wait in line. It's a thing. It's a whole thing.
and I live maybe about 20 minutes from a ski place upstate New York, which I used to go like every day after work or something like that for a while. And but it's because the weather isn't as certain when you go up to the mountains in Colorado, which it's just amazing to get up there and experience that the views and all of that. But skiing and snowboarding is just so freeing to me. You get up on those lifts and you get to see the vast views, and you get to the top of the mountain, and then it's just so wonderful. Have you been up to let's see, you're just new to Denver area, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I recently moved back. I had been here for about 10 years before. Since I moved back, all my friends have moved away, so it's like starting over. But yeah, skiing is incredible. The only thing I think I've experienced that feels close to that level of just liberty and freedom is motorcycles.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've not been on a motorcycle. I fly airplanes, and although the top's not open, but I fly a small plane and a big plane, and the small plane has much more. It's race car like, but I always tell people do something you're afraid to do, do
Mm.
something out of the ordinary, because as long as you have a pulse, you're alive. You're capable of everything and anything. And the
Right. And
challenge.
well, you only get one life. Use it.
I think, but we have an infinite spiritual existence, and that's the beauty of the brain. We can foster the belief in everything and anything, and so why would you want to believe that it's finite when you can believe it's infinite?
Oh man.
What's the downside of that one?
Well, that means there's an infinite number of Mondays you have to get through for some people, I guess.
Right. But you're the part you're right about is, but we're always like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, and so you're here. But if you're waiting too long, it's sort of it gets less and less likely some of those things are going to get done. But I'm impressed at what you're doing, by the way, and I really appreciate you being here with us today, and excited about the cookbook. And I'm going to meet you out at Denver, Low Carb Denver. I hope
Yes,
you'll come out
absolutely.
and visit, because I'll be there the 23rd, 24th, 25th. So Thursday through Sunday, I'll be there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you and many others to learn more. Tell us, so just everyone will listen, how people can find you.
I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me at Lady Carnivory, but I also have a website, ladycarnivory.com. You can connect with me there as well.
And your cooking, do you have any cooking videos for people to take a look at you today?
Oh, yeah. So I have a lot of videos on Instagram. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I've done some cooking videos in the past as well.
And is this going to be your first cookbook coming out with us?
It is. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for bringing me on board with this. And it's a pleasure to meet you, and happy to connect in February.
Well, I'm excited. Maria Emmerich and I did a cookbook last year or the year before on fertility, keto for fertility, which I say it's a fertile life. Whether you're trying to have a baby or you're just working on your life, it's about fertility ultimately. That's all that matters. Thank
Yes,
you,
fertility,
Jacie. God bless you.
vitality, all of it.
Vitality and abundance. That's the
Abundance.
word of the year.
That's my word of the year
Abundance.
for sure.
Well, that's what I'm bringing up. It's abundance, and ultimately, I think all of us really need to look at life abundantly.
Mm.
And I always say, let go of yesterday, and or use the pieces of the puzzle to build your tomorrows in a more amazing way. So,
Absolutely, it's all a learning experience, right?
it's lifelong learning. That's the most important thing. There's no. I always say, I'm going to have a lot of time to sleep when I'm dead. And so I might as well do whatever I can while I'm alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
All right. Well, it's really a pleasure. Thanks for taking your time this evening to share your thoughts and ideas. And so many people are going to love listening to you and watching you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Lady Carnivory. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.